I'm Dave Borowski, the District 7610 PI guy, and our team is sponsoring this event, and we're happy to present Zone 33 Assistant PI Coordinator Ashley Waters. Ashley is a proud member of the Rotary Club of Carroll Creek in Frederick, Maryland. She's been a Rotarian since 2014. That's a long time. Ashley has enthusiastically jumped into the Rotary community. In her club, she recently chaired their major fundraiser for 4 years, Frederick's Oktoberfest. Boy, I like her already. It's great. She is also a member of the board of directors and is the president-elect. Ashley served as the PI chair for District 7620 for 2 years, and she is also a Paul Harris Fellow and benefactor. She's the executive director of Women to Women Mentoring. She previously served as the director of UMBC, that's the University of Maryland, Baltimore campus, right, Ashley? Operations at the Shady Grove campus in Rockville. And she also served as the communication manager for the city of Frederick. She holds a bachelor's degree in international politics from Penn State, go Penn State, a master's degree in nonprofit management from Towson University, and a doctoral degree in public administration from the University of Baltimore. She's also a contributor with SAS Magazine, a publication focused on the development and support of professional women. So with that, Ashley, I'll give you the floor or the ether or whatever this is, and it's all yours.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Sure.
First, it's a pleasure to see so many friendly faces. I know many of you have hopped on our third Thursday events that we do for the Zone 33 team. And for those of you I haven't met, one, I talk really fast. I've been trying pretty much my entire life not to talk really fast, but when I'm a fast talker and I'm passionate about something, all bets are off. I try my best. Plus, I only have you for like 58 more minutes, and there's lots of information we can talk about. So I will try my best to talk slowly. I'm going to get my screen situated here. All right. So this will do what I want it to do. Perfect. Okay. So why am I here tonight? Well, Dave asked me to come and talk to you guys about what I call our two necessary evils, social media and branding. And yes, I'm fully aware that I'm a millennial talking to mostly non-millennials about social media. So what I am going to try to do today is just make it extremely straightforward, extremely simple. We're not going to talk about really major campaigns and the things you would do from like a more business standpoint. I want this to feel relatable for you, and for you to then take back to your club so you can be an ambassador to really get more people engaged on social media, because it really is a great platform for us to share our Rotary messages. So what are we going to talk about today? First, we're going to talk about the importance of your Rotary story and or your club's Rotary story, because fundamentally you can't do a great job on social media if you don't know your story and how to create that narrative. And secondly, branding is intertwined in that really well, because Rotary story is really, in essence, its brand. And what we're doing every day is part of Rotary's brand. And so all of these things kind of work together. So that's what we're going to cover tonight. And I will say that in this full screen mode, since I'm working from home tonight, I may not see your questions in the chat. So Dave, please feel free to interrupt me if there's anything in the chat that I should stop for. But if not, just please unmute yourself and talk. It's sometimes just the easiest way to ask questions.
I'll do it. Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so I typically like to start off by just asking people, do you have a Rotary story? And have you ever really thought about it? And the reason I think this is important, because when we often talk about how you can share Rotary to other people, a lot of times people go almost directly to what we do. And you want to give all these examples, and it gets really overwhelming, when in reality, they just want to know how Rotary has impacted you and how you feel like you're impacting the world because of your involvement in Rotary. And so there are three types of stories that tend to stick out for a lot of people. And so I want you to take a few moments and maybe jot down what pops in your mind so you can think about this more later. But there are stories of challenge, connection, and ingenuity. And so when you think about your Rotary time, what got you into Rotary, why you stay, maybe the project you lead, there's always a reason, right? There are tons of challenges that we're trying to solve in Rotary, so that comes really naturally. Secondly, you almost always have a story around connection. My Rotary story that I often tell comes from connection. It was being new in my community and trying to find my people, right? My people who wanted to be, servants of the community, and Rotary really helped me with that. And so I can sometimes tell a story about that, basically my intro to Rotary and why it's so valuable to me as a person, and why that connection is so important. And we do some really cool, different things that people just don't even think about. The challenges we solve with new solutions is very, very cool. And through collaboration that sometimes in the business world, people just can't seem to really wrap their heads around. And so when you think about it, you could tell your Rotary story in so many different ways. So that could happen with you talking to someone, that could happen in what you're writing. And like I said, it really can happen on social media. So when you're thinking about how you as a person can use social media to further the message of Rotary, or how your club can, think of these three buckets. Sometimes it's really easy to just connect back to the why in these three ways. So how does that story help you on social media? So like I mentioned, sometimes it's really hard to come up with content. So tonight, I'm not going to go into a ton of things regarding how to set up Facebook, or how to do this, or how to do that. I have a PDF that I can hopefully attach in the chat later. If not, I'll make sure Dave gets it to send it out, that goes through all the very step-by-step portions of social media. But if you get your social media set up and then you don't really know what to do with it, that's what we're really going to cover today. So this is why I think it's important to just say, as an individual, as a club, what can you do? How do you get started? And how the heck do you keep up with what keeps spinning? So in addition to kind of having three main story types, I always tell clubs to think about their posts and their content in three main areas: people, projects, and purpose. When you think about how you can inject these three things into your social media, it just seems more manageable, right? Because again, there's tons of people that you're engaging with, whether it's your club members or your partners in the community, people you can shine a light on. Projects, again, giving back to your community, giving back internationally, all sorts of projects that we're doing as well. And then really just the fundamental purpose of Rotary and why we all believe in service above self, and really projecting certain things about Rotary that we really care about, our areas of focus and whatnot. So all those things can turn into posts that you want to do. Okay, so what does this look like in practice? So I'm going to show you a handful of posts that I've made and which ones have done better, worse, which ones I think we could have done better as a club, etc. Okay, so because fundamentally, if I haven't said it enough already, every person in your club should be part of your PI team. Do you know why? Because everyone can share their Rotary story and everyone can post about Rotary. So for me, I post about, I would say maybe 4 things on social media. 1, Rotary. 2, my family. 3, my job, Women to Women Mentoring, the nonprofit that I run. And 4, beer, because I like it a lot and I like sharing my craft beer loves, right? So those are the 4 things you're going to see on Ashley's social media. So we're going to talk about what's worked well and what hasn't worked well for me as a person. That way you can start to bring Rotary into your personal social media journey. So the image you're going to see here on the left, this is me taking a picture of a Rotary Club meeting, which I'm typically like, probably not the best thing to do. But for me, I wanted to show off that we were in a brand new YMCA in Frederick County. And I wanted to give a shout out to this club for having me come talk about Frederick's Oktoberfest, which is really important to my club and to our ability to do a lot of the projects that we do. So this post, again, it was something I could easily do, didn't have to spend a lot of time on it, and it got okay engagement. But what I found is that there are better ways for me to kind of showcase what we do. And to be honest, I'm not above it. Anytime I use my child in a Rotary post, it blows up. Everyone loves my little son. It's the perfect way to connect Rotary and to get people to pay attention to my post, much more than the one on the left. Okay, so the one on the right, it just happens to be, that is our current president sitting in the dunk tank. And we had sponsored a community concert in our park, and we made it a fellowship event alongside with that. And we collected cans of food for our food bank. So everyone came, they brought food, and if you brought 10 cans, you got a throw at the dunk tank. Well, my 7-year-old son just thought this was the greatest thing ever. And so this is a picture, and actually I had the video that I used in Instagram and other platforms as well. This got so many more likes, so much more engagement, and I had more people say, what were you guys doing in that park again? And I was able to then tell them more of the story. So again, when you're thinking about what you can do, think about what you have to leverage and think about what's going to relate to your people that follow you on social media. What people like on my page won't be the same for yours. You need to know your audience. Really just kind of fundamental in social media. Okay, here's another example. On the left, at the end of Holger Knack's year, we actually invited him to join our virtual meeting, and he did. I snapped a picture of it, put it up. Most people have no idea who that guy is, right? So we got a little bit of engagement on it. You know, it was fun because I got to tag a few different things, and I thought it was really cool. But you guys, you can tell the one on the right, again, I used my son. We have these bright ducks. This is a club that's not too far from me. Started this duck race as a fundraiser a few years back. And it's just super fun, super colorful. And it gets people like, what's that? And if one more person goes to this duck race next year, I feel like I've done my job on social media. So again, these didn't take me any time at all. They're simple pictures that I grabbed, made sure I tagged the right people or the right things in them. And I was able to just generate a little bit more buzz personally about Rotary. Okay. So that's one way you could just start to, you know, get more comfortable on social media, is just to try it yourself. Now we're going to critique my club a little bit. And I'm not my club's public image chair, but you know, we have a handful of group and they do a really great job. And so I'm going to show a handful of things of just how to weave in the story that I was talking about earlier. So on the left, you're going to see one that was published back in 2020. And if you can't read the statement at the top, it says a bicycle can get a person somewhere, like from poverty to self-sufficiency. And this is one of our international projects called Bike for the World, where we collect bikes and then ship them overseas with our partner agencies into Africa. And so for us, again, these are really awesome shots because we can see our people loading them in, we can see where they end up, and it really just gets people thinking about, they do that, how do they do that, and what else do they do, right? The picture on the right, we happen to do we raise flags and post flags throughout our downtown area for the majority of the major flag holidays. And again, people love this project of ours, and it typically is a great way for families to get involved. And so again, you're going to see a lot of cool pictures in that post as well. Okay, yep, another one here. We happen to honor the police department. You're going to see we're tagging the police department in this post. It's very, very helpful just to get us more traction. And the one on the right is actually our scholarship recipients and is a video. So that's why it looks kind of grainy. So you're going to see that when we're trying to do these things, we're just trying to paint a picture. We're trying to put out there what we're doing with photos and with tagging, and it doesn't have to be fancy. And that's what, to be honest, I think a lot of people think most of the time that social media has to be super fancy. It doesn't. There are ways to kind of beat the algorithms, if you will. And so I typically give everyone 5 simple tips for kind of really jumpstarting your Rotary social media efforts. And so in addition to what I just shared, handful of things you should know. So first is to know your targets and choose your channels appropriately. I always say if you haven't started with social media at all, the best way to start is with Facebook and Instagram. Facebook and Instagram connect. You can post one place, it can go both places. You can control all the data, all the commenting, all the likes through one back of the house channel now. They've done a really good job of trying to simplify that for a lot of people. Plus, if you ever want to dabble in the ads and other kind of fancy things, you can run that all for both channels as well. People ask me a lot what I think about Twitter, what I think about LinkedIn for Rotary clubs. I think some people can do Rotary LinkedIn pages pretty well. I think you need to have a pretty targeted approach for you doing that. I typically tell clubs not to really jump into Twitter unless you really think you have a ton of content. Twitter really requires you to post 1, 2, 3 times a day. And for most Rotary clubs, that's just not feasible. The type of work we do doesn't translate well into short snippets, right? We like those stories. And so, like I said, if you or your club is looking to really jumpstart in social media, please start with Facebook and Instagram. They really are the easiest channels and the most commonly used right now. I recently did a presentation around advanced social media tactics and talked about how Instagram has some solutions for TikTok and other things that some people ask me about. But fundamentally, you need to know who your target audience is. If the majority of your club members are between the ages of 30 and 70, again, Facebook's going to be your primary audience. Your younger folks may like Instagram more, but staying on those channels, you're going to hit the people you need. And so, like I said, make it simple for yourself. If you can't do it well, don't try to be everywhere. Secondly, again, I think the biggest thing you can do on social media to really help you from a membership side is to try to find the way to demonstrate the value of that membership. Again, it's an engagement. It's showing how you can bring your families into it. It's all of these different things of how you can demonstrate value. But there are definite ways to be able to start to chip away at some myths or some preconceived notions about Rotary by using photos and having people spotlight a member a week and have them talk about why they joined Rotary and to really showcase that value. So there's some really cool ways you can do that through social media. The one thing I think a lot of Rotary clubs do really well is to run our fundraising events. They're also a necessary evil sometimes, where they allow us to do a lot of cool things in our community, but they can be a lot of work and can be a little frustrating at times. And so I just always remember, connect your events to your channels, make sure you're using that platform. In our community, a lot of people know about Frederick's Oktoberfest. We've made a really concerted effort over the last few years to make sure that people know that Frederick's Oktoberfest is actually a Rotary event. And when you come and you're eating and drinking, you're actually doing it for charity. And so for us, we've been able to connect those things a little bit more vibrantly through social media to just increase our impact. And speaking of impact, tip number 4 is really to show and personalize the impact. So for me, when I post about the Rotary Club of Carroll Creek, I post about it a certain way to really try to personalize the impact that I see us making on the community. You can do that at a club level as well. So you probably saw in some of those posts, anytime you can quantify anything, anytime you can use those pictures, do that. It just helps people resonate a little bit more with that information. And then lastly, involve your current Rotarians. Like I said, I try to do it personally. That way, when I ask clubs to do it, they know that I'm willing to put in the work as well. And so find ways for them to help you. If you're a solo club public image chair, or maybe there's just 1 or 2 of you and you're not going to be at every event, have people take pictures and send them to you. Find ways that they can support, have them share out what you're doing. Social media is all about that algorithm and trying to beat it sometimes. And when you like and you love and you high five and you respond to a lot of these things, it really is helpful just to get it out more widely. So again, put that call to action with your current Rotarians and just ask them to help, because again, if they love Rotary as much as you do, then they're going to very easily want to share their story. So again, these are just 5 simple tips. And again, I'm happy to answer any questions at the end regarding what advanced techniques may look like, but also if you have very specific content or channel questions. But I want to shift now a little bit to why branding matters. I'm going to ask, I can't really see your hands too much, but I'm going to see if I can play with my thing down here. By show of hands, who thinks that this is Rotary branding? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands, which makes me very happy. Okay, perfect. So when most people think of branding, they think of logos, and branding is not logos, at least not solely logos. Branding is a lot of things. And so typically when I'm asked to talk about Rotary branding, this is what everyone thinks of, and we are going to touch on this in a few moments. But really, what is a brand? A brand is an entire ecosystem around your company or organization that leads to a feeling and perception in your eyes and hearts of your customers, right? So our customers is our community, everyone that we're serving in our community. And the way that they see Rotary it really comes from the words we use, the actions we take. Yes, the imagery that kind of creates that consistency and links in our brain, but it's all of that stuff. And so I think it's really important for us to understand that Rotary tries really hard. And as you can imagine, with the number of Rotarians and clubs around the world, this is a really hard task to try to give us all the tools to really protect that brand. We don't want to be known as certain things that we are known as from what our brand used to be, right? Our brand used to be no women. Some people still think that. Our brand used to be really networking heavy. And so as we've evolved and tried new things, sometimes we're actually trying to shed parts of that brand that still exists and create this new brand for Rotary for the future. So when we're thinking of branding, I want you to think a little bit more outside of what words you're using on social media, what words you're using to describe Rotary, and that comes back to the story part of it as well, and really think about that. So just to give you two examples, in the brand guide that Rotary puts out, they put out these phrases. And the first one, many of you probably know as Rotary's vision statement, but together we take action to create lasting change in our communities and around the world. That's a very concise statement, but the secondary statement here, Rotary members are effective problem solvers who create solutions that last because we invest in relationships. We know how to mobilize our networks, and we are constantly learning from our experiences as we participate in clubs, volunteer for projects, and manage our careers. And so when you're kind of at loss for words, these things are nice to have kind of in your back pocket, but fundamentally, this is what we want people to see. Okay, so when we think about what pictures to use, when we think about what words to use, when we think about what videos to use, or how we want to project, just think back to these statements. And it really does help you kind of really focus on protecting our brand. Okay, so I just want to make sure everyone realizes that a brand is much more than just one simple thing. So you can take these phrases, maneuver them a little bit to fit your club, but they really are great ways to just try to explain to your community what we are as Rotarians. Okay. But because I know from a public image side, we're typically really focused on the visual brand, which is important because we want people to be able to connect it from community to community, from within communities as they see Rotary clubs doing some great things. Let's talk about this kind of really overwhelming slide. So Rotary has a lot of logos, a lot. And as you notice, there aren't even any of the kind of like presidential theme logos on here, because that would just be a whole other slide and a whole other conversation. But here, the biggest thing is what's okay, what's not, and when to use them. So I'm going to start here with the big wheel on the left. Does anyone know what we call the big wheel? No, we don't call it the big wheel, as just a quick note.
It's a master brand. The master brand, right?
This is the mark of excellence. So close, Dave, close, right? And this is where it gets confusing. And this quiz is purely just for, fun for me, because it really is confusing. So we have this mark of excellence, right? This is what a lot of people think and see when they think of Rotary. And we want to keep that consistent. So you're going to see there's some similarities in the rest of these logos. So the two at the top, you're going to see are slightly different. But this is what we call the master brand. It has Rotary and it has the wheel with the Rotary International in it. This is the master brand that we want to use all the time. This other one over here that's right next to it that has a little bit more of a simplified wheel is really when things are going to be small and it's going to be really hard to tell the detail. So this is actually a really great option when you're getting something done on clothing, because as you can imagine, all those little letters are really hard to get. This is much more simple. So this is what we call the simplified master brand. The next up is the Rotary district and or club logo. And so I'm going to put something on here. If you don't have a logo that looks like here, the District 7620 logo, I will say some logos have the words up top. It'll say, like Sunrise Chicago Rotary instead of Rotary Sunrise Chicago. You can do it either way. But if your club logo doesn't look like this, which is basically the master brand with your description underneath, unfortunately, you have an outdated club logo and you should make sure you update it. So districts, zones, clubs, everything should kind of look like this. As you can tell, the Rotary Foundation logo is, again, very, very similar. There's not much difference than some of the other logos. And then, we just throw in this Rotary People of Action logo that they also offer us. So I share all of these logos, not that you're going to get quizzed on them, not that I know it's not confusing. I put it out there because it is confusing. So if you ever have a question of what logo is best to use, please ask, especially if it's going to be on anything permanent. And so I think it's just really important. The Mark of Excellence is really great, but they don't really like you using it alone. And so I feel like there's just a lot of rules for the branding for Rotary. So what I like to say is if you can get to the point where you're using the Mark of Excellence right, you're using the master brand as much as possible, and your club logo looks like that one in the middle, you're doing a great job. Okay. There's always ways to learn and do more, but that really is a great way to start. The bottom here, you're going to see that Rotaract, Interact have similar logos. They have one that has more detail in the wheel. These are just a simplified one. We have the RILA logos. We have all these other logos to be used. So if you ever have questions about which ones, or you think you need to create something for yourself, you probably don't have to. The Brand Center has all those tools for you, which I'll talk about later. Okay, so the one thing that's not on here, as I mentioned before, the presidential theme logos. And so the reason I didn't really include those today is just a reminder that the theme logos, so Jennifer Jones, Inspire Rotary, those logos are meant for internal use. Okay, so they're used for district to club to member communication. They are used a little bit externally when we're basically communicating to one another, when we're in like Rotary groups and those types of things. But again, it's not meant to overcome this, because as you can imagine, with all of these logos and all of these brand compliance issues, adding in all of that gets really funky. So again, when you're thinking about what you're putting out into the community, when your prime recipient of information is going to be your community members and your organizational partners, please use this stuff. Don't go ahead into the spirally land of those presidential logos. So just to kind of hit home on this just a little bit more, you can see this one up here, number 1, if you still use anything with that blue insert, that is retired. This is probably the most common brand logo mistake we see. People really want to use this old one. Don't do that. Delete it from your files and download the new ones. It really is the best way. So again, this is the master brand. These are the club and district master brands. And number 4 is if you have any approved sponsorships or collaboration and partnerships that you can, how it does with the line, and you can build that appropriately in the Brand Center. But a handful of other things just to note, don't really ever change it. So you can see here, they put white around it. They're still using the old blue one. You don't really ever want to put anything in the middle of it. As you can see, this horse in the middle of the Rotary logo, you can't even tell it's Rotary anymore. This one, they changed the font, so you can see the Rotary isn't in the approved font. And here they're stretched, they're reversed. We try not to mess with it that way. So again, whenever you're using it, whether it's on Canva to design stuff or you're sending it to a printer, just try not to touch what you're downloading. They're typically, everything's in the right proportions, and we try to keep it that way. So again, I could spend a lot of time, but then I feel preachy, and I don't like that. I don't like feeling like the brand police, but it is important for us to protect our brand, which part of that brand is logos. Part of that brand is also the colors and the fonts. And I don't know about you, until they changed the way they put out the Brand Center online recently, who knew Rotary had so many colors? It's a lot of colors. Everyone's pretty familiar with this top row here, right? So you have our Rotary Gold, our Rotary Blue, and then we have these two kind of lighter blues that they use a lot. But as you can see, there's a lot of other colors. And these colors really come out, again, in that presidential logo we see every year. Also in the areas of focus, but also just to give you a little bit of extra muted colors for when design may be a little bit different. So again, when you're working on things, this is a great thing to have handy. On the brand guide itself, it actually gives you all the color codes. So if you're a designer or you're someone who's actually working to design some graphics for social media and whatnot, this information's all on the brand guide, and so are the fonts, right? So this is all part of the brand and trying to make sure you're doing the best to protect it so there's consistency. That's really all it is trying to get to consistency. So as I've mentioned a few times, so I'm going to see if I can get my screen to stop. They recently changed the brand center. So I wanted to take some time today just to walk through this for you guys. So if people haven't ever heard of the brand center, it's really where Rotary puts everything for you to make sure it's easy for you to help support that brand. Okay, and there's a ton in here. Anytime you think you need to create something, check here first. They might actually have it for you. Okay, so it used to be when you came in here, it was kind of really hard to find some things. They've gotten rid of the PDF for the brand guidelines and tried to do things a little bit differently. So I'm just going to click around here and show you guys a few new things. So when you come in here, they now have the people of action. They have brand elements and ways you can promote Rotary. So I'm just going to hop into the brand elements here quickly to show you. This is where you can find all those things I just talked about in terms of the logos, the colors, the font types, all those sorts of things. And you can see here, it's all right here where you can click in. Polio now, the areas of focus, the voice and messaging I talked about, standard images and videos. I really do love this section. If you're right now, like I don't have good photos to use, or I don't have good content yet, get on here and just take a look. You can use these if you need to. There's a whole image gallery. Also, there's a bunch of videos here as well that are already put together that are really great to use as Facebook headers and those types of things. But visuals help. And so until you get your visuals going on your side, see what you can find in here and connect. That's why it's there. It's there to be helpful. Okay, so that's kind of the brand elements. There's a lot in there. And you can see here, there's also ads. And so if you're ever looking for something, you know, this Together We Connect, End Polio, Transform, all those words that we have, all that stuff is here, and you actually can create your own templates. And so this is really cool. Again, if you're not really great with creating your own stuff, you don't want to try to replicate this, you don't have to. You can come in here and you can actually make print ads. You can make a Facebook post ad by inserting your own picture if you had it, and that Together We stuff will pop up there. All of this stuff is there. Again, this is all digital things you can use. So please just hop on there and see what you got. And then the last thing I just wanted to show was other materials. This is sometimes really helpful, especially for smaller clubs. They have brochures, they have banners, they have PowerPoints, they have certificates. All this stuff is brand compliant. It's all done in here, in addition to People of Action and World Polio Day stuff. So there's a lot of great things in Brand Center. And so I encourage you, if you don't have access, to make sure you talk to your club secretary to do some coding in My Rotary to get you there. But they've tried to make it a little bit more web friendly recently. So hopefully you find that really helpful. All right, so typically at this point, I would show my contact information, but I'm actually going to stop sharing and just start to hopefully help you guys and learn more about what's going well with you and you know where I could be of service. So how many of you, now that I can see all your lovely faces again, how many of you are currently in charge of your club's social media in any way? Handful, okay, handful of people. How many of you are interested in just personally using social media a little bit more, either personally or for your club, to share more of your message?
I will tell you, she was going through the brands for women, and I know that a number of the women in the club have expressed an interest in having feminine style logo shirts. Does anyone know how to do that?
Ashley is back on. Maybe she
Oh.
does.
Hi there. Sorry, everyone.
Okay.
I was frozen and then it booted me off and it didn't want to let me back in. So, so you guys are talking about shirts and getting apparel made?
So I was asking specifically about feminine apparel. And I am wondering, since a lot of the women in the group have expressed an interest in having feminine apparel, feminine cut shirts and whatnot, how do I go about this? And I made the mistake of asking what is PI, and therefore I'm on the committee.
Yes, that can happen a lot.
Yes, it can. Yes,
Or
it can.
or if you're good personally on social media, you'll get, snapped right up there. So in terms of, public image, apparel is a great way for you to feel more connected as a club, but also for you to share in the community what is happening. And so I always say, like, the importance of wearing a pin. And speaking of, like, women friendly stuff, please, if you're buying pins for your club or for your district, buy the ones with magnets. We don't have a place to poke our clothing, and then it puts holes in our pretty stuff. So please spend the
sister. I didn't even know that
Yes.
existed.
It's like, so please, for the women in your clubs, like, pay just a few extra dollars for those magnetic pins. It really is life changing. But in terms of apparel, technically, no one should be producing apparel that doesn't have RI approval. And so there is a process to go through where vendors in your community can become Rotary approved. Okay. I'm going to take off my official Rotary hat right now. So that's really hard. A lot of places are not approved. And so for the longest time, before I found out that that's what you were supposed to do, I would buy my own sweaters online and then take them to a fellow Rotarian who would embroider them for me. And so, and again, I give them the color codes, I give them the logos, I make sure I protect everything about it that I can. But unfortunately, we don't have anyone local who is approved by Rotary. And the Rotary process, like, half the time the links are broken on the website, half the time you can't get into it. And so I find the whole thing very, very frustrating. And so I would say that sometimes that's helpful, is to find something that you like and then take it to a printer who can either embroider it or screen print on it. And get it made for you.
So maybe Earl can help me with this question, because we have lots of shirts that come into the club, but they're all cut for men. Should we be going to the person who's approaching the I don't know, the maker of the shirts, like, and say, buy women's shirts? Like, how do I approach this for the women?
Well, Russell Hampton has.
Russell Hampton has them.
Yeah, they have, cut shirts that'll fit
They have women's brands.
better. They have a lot of stuff. If
They have
you
women's
go online to Russell Hampton, you can see.
Yes, they do. They have, they have women's polos, which, again, I hate.
Okay.
They don't have a lot of options. So I would say, when you're thinking about being able to still show some personality in your clothing, like, I go and buy cardigans, and I get cardigans embroidered because I wear dresses a lot of the time. And so for me, a cardigan is better for me to throw on and wear. But someone else may want, a more of an athletic shirt, or maybe they want like a zip up hoodie or something, because that's what they typically wear. And so sometimes Russell Hampton and some of the other vendors haven't kept up with the times.
Right,
And that's why I said, I feel like if you're taking the best intentions to make sure the Rotary emblem is done well, and you're not selling it, that's the other key part. And that's why they really try to protect it. If you're just getting it made for yourselves, it's easier to go to someone locally. If you're selling it or trying to do anything like that, that's when you can get in trouble by not going through the Rotary approved people. So again, just keep that in mind when you're trying to look for stuff. There's a few approved vendors that have more options, but again, it's hard to kind of buy that stuff online. I like to buy my own stuff and then take it to a printer.
Ashley,
and I will tell you,
I am just entering into this field, so thank you. Please, whoever, I think, Anne, were you going to speak?
No, Renee, I was just going to say real quickly, I got a lot of stuff from RTP, which is an approved one. They do have a lot of female selections, and the sizes are really, really true to size.
Who is that?
RTP.
RTP. Yeah, and you can get stuff personalized. I have a few pullovers that just have the little buttons, like the Henley style, that are 3/4 inch length sleeves. And
Okay.
I got Rotary District 7610, the master brand, put on, and it looks real smart. So, and you can pick the color combinations and stuff. I have like a red one with yellow. I have a black one with gold for days that the Steelers are playing. So, you know, you can kind of have fun with it. So RTP is a good one for the female. Also, just so everyone knows.
Is that Romeo Tango Papa?
Yes.
I did a search on RTP and I'm getting.
Maybe I got the letters wrong. Maybe it's
I'm getting.
It's some combination of that.
RPT.
Those 3
I'll
letters,
try that.
Pretty sure.
RPT. I'll look, and when I find it, I'll send it out to people.
Thanks.
Actually, this is Stan, somewhat along the same lines. I have a question regarding commemorative plaques. We're down the road here. We're anticipating the placement of a commemorative plaque, and that might be not exactly the right term, on some display cases and other of things of that nature that will be part of a permanent collection in our county museum. And what's the guidance there to be in compliance with the Rotary brand?
It's going to depend a little bit on the size of what you're doing. But again, the goal is always to use the full master brand if we can. But again, a plaque is a perfect example where that simplified mark of excellence and the simplified master brand is probably going to be better because it's going to be really hard for a plaque to show all those little intricacy details. So I would say, see if you can get the Rotary with the simplified mark of excellence there. If not, the bigger mark of excellence is a really great way to just really catch everyone's eyes, but it's going to depend on the size. So like I said before, I'm happy to look at anything. I've had people send me samples of stuff. Is this Rotary compliant? Does this look okay? Because sometimes when you try to convey to the printer or the designer, they don't quite understand all the rules around it. And so, you know, we've had to play around with a few things like printing on masks and other things recently. But yeah, try to always shoot for the Rotary and the Mark of Excellence together, that master brand.
Jim Holcomb has a question. Jim?
Yeah, there's again, Russell Hampton and a company called 5 Stars. They're both going to be at CPATS. They have almost every plaque you can think of, and many times they'll let you customize that. They have inputs where you can put your own club and your own information. And so just like Brand Central, it's already done for you. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And everything they have is like Ashley said, already in compliance. So in other words, unless you want to go local, there's probably already a design there.
Thank you.
Hey, Ashley, I have a question. You're talking about the Brands Center, and I'd like to know what you think about the website. I think it's called POA Photos, where you're able to design your own people of action kind of images. I use it a lot. I think it's very helpful.
Yeah, no, it is very helpful, Dave. And to be honest, at the time that website became available, that option wasn't available in the Brand Center. So Rotary wasn't helping people with that. And so people wanted to create their own images, but still have that look. And Rotary hadn't developed their site now. So now you have both, right? You can use the People of Action website that was developed. And again, they've been able to do that. And we promote that a lot at the Zone. But now the Brand Center's catching up a little bit. And so you also can do a lot of things through the Brand Center as well. So like I said, you don't have to think of these campaigns yourself. And in fact, most of the time when you're trying to do all that stuff, you're going to start confusing the brand, right? So when these tools are available to keep us on message, but still personalize them, it's kind of like the perfect combination where it can be very much your club, your district, you know, images of what your community would expect from you, but it's still brand compliant without too much extra work.
Now you used in your social media slides, you had photos. Now do you use video a lot for your club? And if you do you use YouTube to publish those videos?
So we use video only from typically like short snippets. We don't produce a lot of long videos that would really go on YouTube. Again, I use the ones on Brand Center. You also can do a lot of cool things in Canva. We're actually going to be talking about Canva tomorrow night. If you're joining the PI team tomorrow night. But videos are really helpful, but keep in mind how long people are actually going to listen to and watch the videos. And so typically you're going to want to try to keep them under a minute if you can, because you can use them more on multiple platforms if they're under a minute. You know, Instagram kind of cuts you off around a minute. And so if you're doing a long video and want to make like a production out of it, absolutely YouTube's a great way. But from a social media aspect, that video is going to be hard to use beyond a minute, 2 minutes from a viewership standpoint.
Oh, and that's your events that you have. You're talking about, I guess, Frederick has was it brewing, or is it the Ducks? Is that one of your fundraisers?
Yeah, so one of the photos I was showing was of the duck race in Mount Airy, which isn't my club. It's close to us. And again, if you're already doing social media well and you want to try to find some new things, one of the newer things you can do is Instagram Reels, Instagram Stories, Facebook Stories. You know, those are the little circles that are at the top of those platforms now. They disappear in a half hour. That's where video is really helpful. You can go live, you can snap some video, and really use it to just garner some attention. And so like that duck race, for instance, when they would dump all the ducks into the thing and they would come down, I got some really great videos of that, and people were loving it. And so again, those quick videos just to try to get people, like when you're actually doing something, is a great way. And again, we all have those great cameras in our pockets now with our cell phones, so it's really easy to incorporate video. Rotary does provide some video in the brand center. If you're like, I don't know how we would do that in our club, don't try to reinvent the wheel if you can't. They have some really great videos to start. There are a handful of things coming in the chat. So Gary mentioned storing. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, so mentioned storing like a library for local and club images. Absolutely. The one thing sometimes clubs don't really think about is just how they're passing things on to one another, where people can put them in. So I know for our club, we have a Dropbox account that people can upload photos to if they're taking them, to just try to, especially from an event or something, there's an easy way they just can drop them in there. But yeah, as a PI team, as a club, as a district, I definitely would find something. So whether that's Google Drive, whether it's Dropbox, Box, etc., you know, SharePoint, whatever you guys want to use. You don't, I mean, unless you're going to have a ton of photos, I don't think you need to invest in like a photo storage kind of software. Just do a good job of, you know, making your folders, and that should work. You know, some pictures you're only going to use once, but then you're going to find those really great nuggets of photos that you took that you can use over and over again because it was just like perfect lighting and a perfect combination of people doing things. Those are kind of like your highlight photos. But yeah, I would definitely find a way to store them. I know for our club, we use them especially to highlight certain projects that we do over and over.
Hey, SPL asked, what is the PI committee tomorrow? Ashley, could you go into that a little bit? You do something once a month. Your zone does like a seminar once a month.
Yeah, so Zone 33, the public image team, which is myself and 4 other people, we have what we call Third Thursdays. And every third Thursday, we host something. And so 4 times a year, we do a master class, which is basically a presentation like this on a topic, a little bit longer, but really hyper-focused. We just did that last month where I did advanced social media techniques, which we talked about a handful of new things that clubs can really try if they feel like they're killing it already. But so this month and next month will be what we call office hours. And that's really just a time for a hop on. And we talk about any topics that may have come up a lot in the last month, but otherwise we just answer your questions. So tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock, we'll be doing that. And I can put the website in back up on the screen here in a second where you can find the information. But tomorrow we're going to cover a little bit about Canva, because in our last session, people had some questions about Canva, but otherwise we're just going to be on answering your questions. We'll do the same thing in March. And then in April, which is our last master class, it's all about branding with actually a woman named Liz from Rotary International. So she'll blow what I did up tonight and go into way more detail and really focus on the importance of branding. We're calling it Branding Plus. So again, I will put the, give me one second here. I'm going to share my screen again.
I also have it on our district website. It's in the calendar on the website. You'll see the Zoom link and all that stuff.
So yes, if you go to this link right here, it'll all be there. We also post it in the Zone 3334 Facebook group if any of you are a part of that.
Yes.
So I know we have a few minutes. I just want to see if there are any other questions regarding social media, regarding branding, or really just anything else Rotary related that I can help with tonight.
I just posted a chat, probably hasn't come through yet, but this is kind of way back in the dark ages of social media, it really isn't, but email, are there HTML templates on the site? Because I always put the approved logos on there, but I also struggle with finding the right kind of artwork and so on for those emails for when we have an event, and that's what our public uses. You know, we have a Facebook, that's a good one, but obviously we also have an email list, and I get stuff out that way. Can you entice me to go to the website and find those templates?
Yeah, so I will say I'm not sure I've ever seen email templates, mainly just because it depends if you're using DACDB or Club Runner, like what you're using for your email system. And so I will say if you're looking for better templates, if you use DACDB, they have some good templates you can really build out in there, but I'm not sure that Rotary International is providing that. I have not seen them, but every once in a while they add something in there that I haven't seen before. So definitely go in there and poke around. You can find business cards and a lot of other things that just kind of like, oh, I didn't know they had that. But email templates, not so sure. So that's where, again, the brand colors come in handy, because you can make your backgrounds or your headers or your fonts, that kind of thing, brand compliant. And again, that's where DACDB, I know, does a little bit better of a job trying to help you with that, since it's a Rotary partner.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Ashley, this is Tommy. For tomorrow's meeting, I won't be able to make it, but are you doing recordings like this one? And where do you post them, if you do?
Yeah, so we don't do recordings of the office hours, just because it sometimes goes all over the place, and we want people to feel like they can just talk freely on those sessions. So we don't do that. But again, what we'll probably try to do tomorrow actually is to record just the Canva session.
Okay.
Like the first 10 minutes, just because we're just going to walk through the basics of Canva, how to get yourself set up on it. So if we do that, we have a Zone 33 YouTube page that you can follow and find. Actually, you can find the master classes we've done before on that as well. That's also on the main Zone page I just put up on the screen. You can find all of the links to that there. And we typically try to post it in the Zone 3334 Facebook group. So it's typically out in a handful of places, but if you don't see it, just feel free to email me. We typically try to get it up in a few days.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Hey, Ashley, this is Sarah. In the time that we have left, may I just say to Waverly Brown that I would like to invite you to come to Fredericksburg, and I want to come to your club because I row in Lake Ridge all the time, or in the summers all the time, and would love to get to know you. But in the meantime, this opens up to the whole group. Being someone who is not from a publicity background or has no PI experience, et cetera, what would you tell a complete novice who somehow got herself into this situation? What would you recommend that I do?
I think fundamentally, and I tried to hopefully convey this today with like what I put on social media, is just like, what would you want people to know about Rotary? Okay, we want them to know that we're trying to serve our communities near and far. We want them to know that we're fun people, right? We want them to know that we really are focused on making a difference. And so when you can get really wrapped up in, best practices for communication and public relations and all those things, just start sharing, have people talk about it, ask people to help you. This is not a one person job. If you're the club PI chair or the district chair, you can't do it alone. And it's just about telling the Rotary story. And so I think it really is that simple when you're thinking about how you would want to tell the story. So bring it up when you're with your family, bring it up when you're out with friends. If you find a cool place where you can put a flyer up, put a flyer up. I mean, some people, your community is different than everyone else's community. Does radio still work in your community? Does print on newspapers still work in your community? Use your connections and just do what makes sense in your community. How do you find out about things? Do that, right? So sometimes people want to do all these fancy things. Just do what works for your community and start small. You don't have to do 100 things a day. Focus on just like a handful of good punches of when you can get your information out there, and then you'll start to build and see what works and what doesn't. So yeah, I don't want anyone to think it's just, it can get really overwhelming, but again, we're all human. We know how we learn about stuff, and who we trust. And so use your networks to just start talking about it. The best public image stuff you can do is showcasing yourself as a good Rotarian and telling other people about it. All this other stuff is just extra, and it's important extra sometimes, but like, it doesn't have to be hard. Sometimes it just takes a while to get into the groove. So like I said, don't feel like you have to make all these fancy things and do all this fancy stuff. Just go back to the basics of how you learn about information in your community and then try to replicate that.
Thank you, Ashley. I appreciate that. I would totally ask you more questions about that, but Mr. Holcomb has a question.
Yeah, for SPL, I'm sorry about the name, but are you in the Rappahannock, Fredericksburg?
I am.
Well, you're in luck. You've got Boffman, you've got Janet Brown, you've got June Woodage. They're all the best layout people in the business. Talk to them. They've done the newsletter. They've done all kind of stuff, and they'll help you. They're good people.
I love what you're saying. And June reached out to me
Yeah.
a minute after I somehow got this position. So thank you for that.
I have a really quick anecdote if people have a second. Our deacon at a church, her husband is a Rotarian. She actually included the 4-way test in her sermon one time. And that was incredible. I almost fell out of my pew. See if you can manage to do that.
Okay, we're about out of time. Ashley, thank you very much. You know, Ashley is our district contact, right? Ashley, you're all assigned to different districts, and you are ours.
I am. So you guys have me for the whole next year. You guys have my information. Please don't hesitate to just pop over a question or two, or if you just want to have a one-on-one strategy chat, we can do that anytime as well.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. It was a great hour. It went fast. This session is being recorded, and I'll be putting it on our YouTube channel, and I'll post it on the our district Facebook group. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Terrific.
you.
Take care.